Emmanuel, welcome to Real Pod.
A long time coming. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. I want to kind of tell everyone how we met for the first time because I think it's an example of shooting your shot. We were both at the quarterback premiere. I was like, he's so inspirational. Love that dude. Love everything he shares. I was like, I want to go say hi. And I feel like if people don't take those risks, like this doesn't happen.
You know what they say, closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah.
I think, one, kudos to you. I was saying this off camera. I'll say it on. I love what you've built. I love the platform that you've built. And I also suggest, like, you never know who's watching. And I think I had heard about you 4 or 5 years ago when you were sharing your story transparently, either via TED or on social media. So when you came up to me at Netflix, I had recognized you by face. And so I was like, yeah. And I don't do podcasts, by the way. Like, I just don't do them. I had vocal cord surgery. I don't like to talk when I don't have to talk. But somebody like you, I was like, yo, this is cool.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And that was also a little bit ago.
Probably
over a year.
Yeah, definitely over a year. It was summer of 2023.
And that's another thing. It's like, first you got to go make the introduction, shoot your shot with someone. And then you got to be patient throughout the process, make sure the stars align. Yeah. It works for your schedule. It feels right. So I always tell people, you just keep moving the needle. And then eventually the thing you thought you wanted tomorrow will happen.
Yeah, I also think your story is, we have similar stories and story arcs, if you will. There's a matter of like, just do what you do as best as you do it, and people will notice you eventually. And that's kind of been my MO, is like, I don't necessarily work for other people's attention or their approval. I just work with the gifts that I've been given. And eventually, whoever you care to notice you will notice you. Like, my favorite, most humbling but special story of being in LA, I was at Catch LA in my 30th birthday, restaurant in West Hollywood. I'm sitting with like 5 friends, and Tom Holland and Justin Bieber walk in. And they walk in separately. And Catch was it was vibing in 2020. Mind you, I didn't know JB at the time. And he's one of the 3 people I cared to meet in life. It was Bieber, Denzel Washington, Will Smith. The 3 people I care to meet. Everybody else cool. I'm sitting at the table. And Bieber goes up to go to the bathroom, right? He goes up, he just sprints away, security follows him. He goes back to his table. I'm sitting in my little booth. As he's about to sit down, he stops, he turns, he looks at me, he walks over, and he says, "Hey, bro, I just want to tell you I love what you do. Like, the conversations you have, like, I love what you do." I said, whoa, let me get up. Like, let me give you the respect you deserve. We talked for probably 5 minutes at that point. Since then, like, we've become close, we've become cool. But I say all that to say, not to brag or name drop, but rather to say, like, you just work, you never know who's watching. And eventually, like, the people who you cared to meet will one day care to meet you. And I think, like, really kudos to what you've done. Because I always like, oh, I like what she's doing. I don't know if we'd ever cross paths, but I was like, oh, I like what she's doing. And then when you hit me up, it's like, yeah, we'll make it work.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And that's a really cool story because you're thinking, oh, should I go make a move? And then he comes up to you and is like, Emmanuel.
And I'm different than you. I don't have the courage. I don't go up to people because I don't create for response. I create from revelation. Like, whenever I create something, it's not necessarily to move a needle or to get an Instagram comment or reply. It's more so like, okay, this has been revealed to my heart. This has been revealed to my mind. This has been revealed to my spirit. This has been revealed to my soul. And since it's been revealed to me, now I'm going to reveal it to the world and see if it resonates. So that's probably my why, is like, I don't create for response. I just create for revelation and see if it moves people.
I love that. And I think the best things come from that. When I give my TEDx talk, I didn't think, oh, I'm going to become a public speaker. I'm going to build this brand. I'm going to found a nonprofit. I was just like, I don't care about anything right now other than telling everyone, like, how there is a mental health crisis facing student athletes and no one cares. Yeah. I wouldn't be here if I didn't say, screw my major. I thought I wanted to be a sports reporter, and I went in this different direction, and now I'm here. And I feel like everyone has something maybe itching at their heart. Like, when I do this, I really feel lit up.
Man, honestly, like, I know this isn't the Sing Vic's Praise podcast, but I just like, I just so commend what you do. And I hope everybody does. But what I mean by that, one time very early on, after I started Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, which later won me an Emmy and all the other things that were cool, somebody asked me, they said, Emmanuel, I'm trying to figure out my calling. Like, how do I know my calling? And I responded, Vic, and I said, your calling will call you. You just have to pick up. And I think that's what you did. Like, as I'm listening to you speak and you're talking about there was this mental health crisis and you just had to answer, like, your calling called you. And I don't think you are any different than me. I'm no different than the viewer. Everybody's calling will eventually call them. And what I mean by that is that tug will be on their heart. It'll be on their spirit. It'll be on their soul. It'll keep them awake when they're lying in bed at night. It'll keep them talking about it with their best friends or in the group chat. Hey, I have to do this. I have to start this business. Maybe I need to leave this school. Maybe I need to break up with this person. Maybe I need to start this domestic violence counseling group. Whatever the case is, your calling will call you. It's just that those that are willing, courageous, obedient, and self-sacrificial enough to pick up, I think those are the ones who the world notices. I tell people, like, dude, I'm not that talented. I'm talented. I'm not that talented. I was just obedient to a calling. And I think similarly, at least from what I know about you, you're just super obedient to, like, the calling on your heart.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And I gotta now give you some praise because you are insanely talented. I mean, when I first watched Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, the way you spoke, the way that it was short, so you didn't waste a word, and it hit for millions and millions of people. And it's brilliant. It's not only so important, but you can tell, like, you had to say, let's put it on a white background, very simple. It's just about what I'm saying. Like, that's like artistry. So yes, you are very talented. And yes, you know, everyone gets dealt different hands.
Yeah, it takes a lot. So Uncomfortable Conversations, that was started in 2020 and ends up with 100 million views cumulatively over, like, my first 10 episodes. I win an Emmy Award for it. 3 best-selling books off the same title. And beforehand, I was just an athlete, right? I was just a retired athlete. But it was one of those situations where I had to do it. Like, I didn't necessarily want to do it. I had to do it. After the murder of George Floyd, everybody was trying to figure out what to do. And I read this quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson, and paraphrasing, it says, if you have the ability to do something and you can do it better than those around you, and it's for the greater good of society, you will be morally irresponsible not to. And I think that was the burden I felt of, like, wait a second, I can have these conversations. They're for the greater good of society. And I've been given a gift that makes me better to do them than those around me. So I have to do it. And I think that's the space you found yourself in. And that's the space so many people listening and watching will find themselves in. It's like, hey, everybody has an ability to do something. And I promise it's for the greater good of society. So you're morally irresponsible if you do not do it. And that's kind of how Uncomfortable Conversations was birthed. Obviously, I had to have talent. I had to have God-given talent. But people don't realize, do you remember Blackout Tuesday on Instagram?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Blackout Tuesday, it was the Tuesday, and nobody knows this. And I say this to remind people, sure, I'm talented. I'm not that talented. Blackout Tuesday was the Tuesday after I dropped Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man on Monday. Nobody was posting things on Tuesday on Instagram. As a result, everybody just reshared my video. It was because of Blackout Tuesday. If Blackout Tuesday did not exist, I'm not sitting here right now. I know for a fact, if not for Blackout Tuesday, if everybody was still posting their, like, bikini pictures on the beach, like, no, it goes viral to some degree, but it doesn't have, like, Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon and McConaughey and Oprah and everybody else direct messaging me, because everything would have been so saturated. So it was not only, like, talent, but it was also timing. And I think life is so much about timing and talent.
That was such a transformative time. What's so sad about it, I think, now is that it's almost like that's when the white people who at least thought they were allies, like, woke up to a crisis, but Black people were like, this is not, like, new news for us. But when I look back in my mind, which is, like, embarrassing to say, I feel like I look at 2020 as a time where I had a big awakening of what it meant to be an ally or what it meant to talk about Black Lives Matter. Because I guess I thought, oh, well, I treat everyone the same in my little life. In my life, I know I'm kind to everyone, you know, regardless. And that should be good enough. I think that's, like, what people thought. Like, oh, it's not. And then I think when we saw what happened to George Floyd, and as you talk about in your video, it's like that analogy of you're biking behind someone and you say on your left. And it's like you do it kindly and you do it respectfully until one year in 2020, it's just not okay anymore. Thank you for what you did, because that helped, I think, a lot of people wake up to the real issues that have been happening for a long time before that. Is it true that you got a random no caller ID phone call after that first episode?
The first episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, it had maybe 25 million views in 5 days. And again, I had 37,000 Instagram followers at the time. Like, I did not have the million I have. I was just a guy. It got 25 million views in 5 days. My DMs are blowing up. And I got a call from a no-caller ID number. It was a Saturday morning. I'm eating Cheerios on my desk in Austin, Texas. True story. Honey Nut.
Honey Nut.
And I pick it up, and all I hear is, Acho, McConaughey speaking. I want to have a conversation. And I was like, McConaughey? Like Matthew McConaughey? I tell people all the time, my voice gets high when I talk to famous people. McConaughey? Like Matthew McConaughey? He was like, I want to have a conversation. Now, true story, I did not want to do another episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. First episode got 25 million views. You can't follow that up. So I was like, you know what? I did my job. I gave to society what I could give it. But McConaughey goes on to say, let's do it tomorrow. I was like, tomorrow? And so I was like, sure, we'll do it tomorrow. Now, what McConaughey, along with the rest of the world, didn't realize is a wedding videographer was shooting as my producer. My best friend and Olympic gold medalist was my other producer, and I just rented a studio space in Austin. This was not a high-level production. This was a bunch of kids with no media experience. It's during COVID, so McConaughey was like, hey, can you just make sure the place is sanitary? My mom is living with me, etc. Say less. So me and McConaughey shoot episode 2 of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, and my life hasn't been the same since.
Wow. That is incredible.
I think about this all the time. I don't say it as often, but I can't guarantee your dream will come true if you try. I can't guarantee your dream will come true if you try. Like, I just can't. But I can guarantee your dream won't come true if you don't try.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wish people would understand about anything in life. Whether it's the girl or the guy you want to go on the date with, I can't guarantee they'll say yes if you ask, but I can guarantee they won't say yes if you don't ask. If it's the business you want to start, if it's the job you want to be the CEO of, like, I can't guarantee you if you apply, you'll get it, but I can guarantee if you don't, you won't. And I think what you did is just like, hey, I'm just going to do it. And oftentimes people don't realize, like, not everything you do will work, but you just kind of do it anyway.
I want to almost call these like Emmanuelisms. What do we call these? You have these nuggets of gold that are just brilliant. And I actually wrote down a few of them. There's so many, it's hard to rank them. But if I could say the 3 that were like most on my heart and mind today, you posted something that said, sometimes you just feel like going off. Like sometimes you just want to lay in and you want to get in the battle, the thumb war on Instagram. But you were calling on a quote that said, the battles that you engage in reveal the level that you are on. What does that mean?
You never see Oprah respond to like trolls. You never do, because she's above responding to trolls. If you take yourself down to engaging in a level that is low vibration, then you too are low vibration. I think of that saying which says, be careful of arguing with fools, because from a distance, it's hard to tell who's who. So if you arguing with a fool, somebody who's on the outside in, they can't really tell, wait a second, is Victoria the fool or is she arguing with the fool? And so I just think, especially in this day and age of social media and always wanting to get the last word in on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Snapchat, if you're still using Snapchat, like, it's just, don't stay in low vibration places, because it says that you're in a low vibration place. That's why you rarely see me engaging in arguments.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. And I think it reminds me of also when you maybe just get like a text from that family member or that friend and you want to start going with like your paragraph back. Actually happened to me yesterday. I got the longest text. You could think of the longest text, now double it. An ancient scroll appeared in a text chat. That's how much I was scrolling. And I literally go to type something. And then I literally, as I sit there deleting typing, I just go, you know what? One sec. I go outside and I just call this person. I just go, hi. I'm like, I just want to talk about this, like, because I think this is the better way to handle it, right? There's some misunderstanding on text. This is crazy.
I'm with you on being gentle. I constantly remind myself, like, a gentle answer turns away wrath. Just constantly tell myself that. So it takes 2 to argue. One person can't argue with themselves. So oftentimes, if I find myself in a heated debate, I'm just like, wait a second, you can end it. Like, you don't have to partake in this conversation. You can just end the heat of it all. You can end the vitriol of it all. And I think there was a lot of wisdom, though, in what you did, though. You paused. You took a second. You paused. You took a second.
Power of the pause, baby. I got to get that tattooed.
And not a lot of people pause and take a second. So the wisdom is in that.
And that took time. Like, I've been in therapy for 3 years. It's been amazing. Have you ever been?
I have. Life be lifing.
Yeah, life be lifing. And it's so helpful. I was thinking of this before when you were talking about how if someone doesn't go after their dreams, you can guarantee they won't come true. But I also think as we talk today, and we do have these 1% careers, like, and that's not realistic for every single person. But I think when life deals you a deck of cards that you didn't expect, or you think it's the worst thing ever, that little moment of this pause I had, I wouldn't be able to have the tools for it if actually one of the worst things that's ever happened to me 2 years ago didn't happen to me. Mm-hmm. That I wasn't then forced to work on it, forced to accept it, forced to then want to read this book. Like, all these things are a ripple of what at the time felt like, I can't believe this is happening to me, to now I wouldn't change a thing because I love who I've become and I love how it like healed me and I love what I've learned. So I also urge people to say, whether you look at your life or your job currently and say, this isn't what I want, it's teaching you something and it's going to be a part of the Steve Jobs. You can only connect the dots looking forward, right?
Yeah. That's good. You know, it's interesting even when you talk about like the 1% careers. I always say, like, it depends who you ask.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm so into this. Tell me, what's wrong?
It depends who you ask. Like, I believe, and I realized this a decade ago, I truly believe everybody's talented. Certain professions are given more esteem than other professions in society, but that doesn't make the profession of more value. That doesn't make the person of more value. You might have more followers, whatever that means. You know, you might be able to turn some followers into money, whatever that means. But it's like, I just truly believe everybody is talented. I just don't know if everybody knows they're talented. And if you don't realize you're talented, you can't realize your talent. So I'm just trying to like convince and remind people, like, no, like, I'm no more special than you. Like, you're no more special than me. We're no more, like, everybody is talented. You just have to realize the talent and figure out what it is. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to figure out what it is. You have to work at it. But most importantly, like, you got to be willing to fail. Living in Hollywood, so many people are scared to fail. They are so scared to fail. And sometimes you just have to like silence the doubters. Before I started Uncomfortable Conversations, true story, I'm with the black man. Quite literally, it changed my life. I called on 2 people on my team. You know, we have agents and lawyers and managers and publicists. I asked 2 people on my team, hey, should I do this book, Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man? Like, should I do this book? They told me, and I quote, the market is too saturated for a book like that. The book debuted at number 3 on the New York Times bestsellers list. And I was like, you told me, and you're supposed to be the expert. You told me the market was too saturated for a book like that. Imagine if I would have listened to you. And so I'm just, to anybody listening, somebody else gives you their advice. It's just that. It's theirs. Now, it may be well-mannered, it may be well-intentioned, it will be well-meaningful, but it's their advice. It's not necessarily your advice. So you just have to hold that with a grain of salt and a grain of sand.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Gosh, a lot of people will say no. I've had to question myself recently about things where I've either said no to myself first or heard someone's no and then been like, okay, yeah, you're right. And then I'm like, wait, but if I want to do it or it lights me up, why wouldn't I, you know? Yeah. And I love when people say, so anyone who is very happy in their lives and occupied isn't going and telling other people, don't do this thing or you can't do this thing, right? I'm sure you probably rarely say that to people. You just encourage them.
Yeah. And well, you know what I do? I'll say, hey, here's a blind spot. Consider this or consider this or consider that. But I will never necessarily tell somebody no. I might be like, hey, here is why I wouldn't. But hey, do what you feel you need to do or go the way your heart leads.
Before, when you said life be life in, that you've been to therapy, I appreciate that because I think everyone will experience that at times. And I'm a huge advocate for mental health. And I think mental health, as far as how it's viewed specifically for Black men, is really stigmatized. I'm curious why you think that is, if you agree with that, and if you've had any obstacles with emotions and vulnerability as a man, as a Black man?
I think it's twofold. One, as a Black man, just societally, you have to be, and you're taught to be just tougher, like excessively tougher. And then as a man in general, you're taught you have to be this alpha leader. You can't cry. I've only seen my dad cry maybe twice. He's 73 years old. And so I've had to teach myself how to be emotional. Now, kudos to my parents. He moved from Nigeria to America in the late 1970s with nothing, and he had 4 kids, and we all have successful careers. But like, I've had to teach myself how to be emotional. I've had to teach myself how to cry. I've had to realize that crying is of the same value as smiling, that being sad is of the same value as being happy, that being low is of the same value as being high. And I've had to realize that, like, there is value in the full expression of all these emotions, and don't let society tell you that there's something wrong with crying, particularly as a man. I tell people all the time, I just had my 30th birthday. I intentionally go out of my way every birthday to cry. Everyone. I start my day on a walk with God, listening to music that will induce tears, because if you don't deal with your emotions will deal with you. Mm-hmm. And I wake up every birthday at a minimum, and I just weep, and not like cute cry. I just, like, it's tears of gratitude, tears of elation, tears of sadness for the years that have passed that I'll never see again. And it's just refreshing. But like, I love crying. Like, because I'm so confident and comfortable in who I am as a person and who I am as a man, that like, I love crying, and nobody can really like punk me out of it.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And I think everything you said is so true. It's to experience the happy, you need to have the sad. Yeah. Those things work hand in hand. I do have the opportunity sometimes to speak to male athletes, particularly. Actually, when I used to be doing the rounds, my favorite thing was when it was just like, just the football team's coming tonight, or it's just the guys. Because I was like, yes, like I know from the second I start, I have to win them over. But a story that I'd always call on was I had the once in a lifetime opportunity to have a meeting with Kobe Bryant. And when I met with him, I asked him about Mamba mentality, because he had expressed interest in my nonprofit and this mental health movement. And that surprised me a little bit, because Kobe had always been someone that men especially would call on as Mamba mentality. Like, I'm not going to cry because Mamba mentality means I shouldn't cry. And as I talked to him about it, he said, Mamba mentality is about identifying a perceived weakness or something that could keep you from being your best self. And if you're not addressing your emotions, or you're not addressing a problem that's like really tugging at your heart, that's not being Mamba, because it's having the strength to look at everything and say, this needs work, this needs time and attention. And I just think that was, it's almost like Mamba mentality was taken as this intense thing, and then parts of it were misunderstood. Yeah. And so I remember one time I did share that story, and it was right around when Kobe had passed away. And so actually someone in the audience was just wearing his jersey, one of the football players, and he came up to me at the end and he was like, I'm so glad you shared that story, because I feel like I call on that to mask my emotions, and that just changed everything. Yeah. And especially Kobe, like being who he was and as a Black man, but for men in general, they're not encouraged to be as vulnerable. If you cry in a locker room, people are like, hey, like toughen up, like you got this. You know, it's viewed that way.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting in sports because there are different dynamics, and I also do think to some degree time and place and time and space, like it all matters. You know, if I'm on the field before a game-winning drive, I can't start boo-hooing. Like now is not the time, Macho, to cry. Now is the time to galvanize, to lead. If you are in a space where a decision has to be made and somebody has to make said decision, read the room.
Totally.
You know what I mean? But it's unfortunate because for men, it's always looked at as bad. Like you're looked at as weak or cowardly or not masculine or not man enough if you're crying. And I'm like, showing your realist emotions is actually more courageous because you have to show them in spite what may be hurled at you for showing them. It's easy to always act tough. That's actually the easy part. Like acting tough and always acting like everything's all good. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, man, you know, I'm blessed. It's all good. That's easy. What's actually difficult is, man, I'm actually struggling with this, and here's why. Like going into the deepest, darkest depths of your heart and visiting those ugly rooms inside the closets of the house of your heart, that's actually much more difficult than just acting like every room in your heart is tidy.
I completely agree. So I think it goes to show that we've been looking at it wrong, and it's actually the people who are eliciting the strength and the bravery to make that therapy appointment or reach out for help or tell that buddy, I'm not good right now. So yeah, I appreciate you talking about that. I'm also curious to know a little bit more about when you officially transitioned out of football. You played in the NFL. You had cool experiences of both playing in NFL games and then being on practice squads and being on two different teams. When you were released at the end of your career, what made you decide, okay, I'm going to go into journalism, I'm going to go into something else and not try again? Because I think a lot of people struggle with knowing when it is time to turn the page.
It's a really good question. There's like a literal sexy answer, and then there's just like, the real answer. I'll try to interweave both. After 4 years in the NFL, you're vested, pension, and you have annuity. So you have all the benefits. So I was like, okay, I'd played 4 years, check. We've done that. Going into my 5th year, it was August of 2016. I get a call from the Dallas Cowboys who want to bring me in for a workout. Cowboys train in Oxnard, California, about an hour away from where we're sitting recording this right now. I go to Oxnard, California. It's like 6:45 a.m. I lace up my cleats, left foot, right foot, put my socks on, got the workout gear on. I see this old Cowboys legend hobbling around, and everybody's like, "What's up, brother? What's up, brother?" And I said in that moment, Vic, I was like, I don't want to be him. I don't want to be the legend that's still at practice at 70 that people are still trying to like herald, like, "What's up, brother?" I said, I don't want that. I called my agent, my TV agent. I said, what if they want to sign me? Like, I was scared of being signed. And so I was like, okay, I'm probably done. The Cowboys didn't end up signing me. 2 weeks later, I am, and this will turn into a mental health story here momentarily. 2 weeks later, I'm in Washington, D.C. at a journalist conference. I got a text at 11 o'clock at night. "Hey, Emmanuel, this is so-and-so from the Buffalo Bills. We need your date of birth and your license and your social security number. We want to bring you in for a workout." I don't respond. They text me again at 6 a.m. the next morning. "Hey, Emmanuel, this is so-and-so from the Buffalo Bills. We want to bring you in a workout." I call my agent, my football agent. I say, "Hey, I'm done. I said no to the NFL. The NFL didn't say no to me." So the oldest message in my phone is the NFL reaching out to me and me never responding, because I wanted to be able to walk away on my own time. So one, that was just to protect my own mental health. The why of it all, I felt like I could make a greater impact in my own life and in the world's life by leaving sports. Sports are cool, but I just felt I was more gifted than tackling people. And I left because I trusted that, but I've always been a person to take a leap of faith. And that was the first major leap of faith I took. It worked out. And since then, I've just been taking leap after leap after leap.
And you saw that you had talent and you had things to offer this world that weren't your physical gifts. And I feel like a lot of athletes, their whole lives have been celebrated for being the football star, the volleyball star, the soccer player, the track athlete, like that they don't know what those pieces or words are to talk about them as a person outside of the game. And it's so unfortunate because, like you said, everyone's talented.
Yeah.
And maybe when you were young, people found out, okay, one of the talents is this sport. But now you have a chance to kind of figure out something else. And it's not fun to be an adult and fear failure or start from scratch or build your resume. But then you find it.
Myself included, we societally, people have it all wrong. We're looking for the finish line, and you need to just take the next step. And the problem is, if you can't see the finish line, then you don't take the next step because you're like, I don't know where I'm going. Because if you just take the next step, the finish line will eventually hit you. Like, you don't have to hit it. I also believe that the beauty of life isn't about reaching a destination. It's about the road you travel. And so people stay paralyzed because they're waiting to see a finish line that they will never see. You won't see the finish line until you take that next step. When I left the NFL, I did not see an Emmy Award. I did not even see Oprah Winfrey or Matthew McConaughey. I just saw the next step. And I took a step and I took another step and I took another step. And I don't know that I'm even nearing a finish line, but I'm walking a beautiful journey. So people have to stop waiting to see a finish line that they will never see. Just see that foot and then see the next foot and then see the next foot and then see the next foot and watch the beautiful journey you travel.
How do you come up with these incredible analogies? They're like so perfect. That's a gift. Like it's insane. Like you're such a good speaker. I'm almost like not able to keep like my professionalism because I'm here like, oh my, I just want to take notes.
Honestly, I'll be very vulnerable. My biggest fear in my occupational life is running out of that. It's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is one day it won't come to me anymore. Like that would be somebody's like, hey, what's your superpower? Words just come to me. I don't even know how. I don't know what. Every day whenever I sit to talk on TV or sit in a podcast chair, I'm like, all right, God, show up. And I'm just like, just do it. Whatever you do, that thing you do, God, just do it again. And my biggest fear whenever I'm sitting down is like one day it might be gone. Thankfully, it hasn't yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's honestly, I don't know how. It just happens.
Well, thanks for sharing that. We all have our own little fears. On that note, because I obviously talk a lot as well on the podcast and public speaking, do you ever have the days where you're just like, I don't have inspiration. I have nothing I want to say right now. Like I'm feeling very bleh. Like I'm just feeling like I'm in this present moment. Because sometimes I get that way.
I have a lot of those days and I don't say anything. I think it's okay to have those days. You know what I mean? Like sometimes people just feel like they have to have a thought or I have to put a tweet out on this. I have to put an Instagram video out on this. I think take time, think, collect a thought, and when you're ready to say it, say it. Now, I do believe that to some degree we're responsible to speak about certain things, but I think sometimes the beauty is in being quiet. Like I don't comment on everything. There is the wisdom in, okay, can I sit in a space that will help me curate and create a thought? Sometimes there's a book, I think it's The Creative Act, and it just talks about like true creators, they just put themselves in position where creation happens. They're not always just like, oh, I got to create. No, I'm just going to put myself in a position where creation happens. And so I don't always feel like I got to speak. Sometimes I'm grateful when I don't.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I got to stop judging myself on the days where it's not matching another day, because that could be the day where I'm recharging to then have the ability to create the next day.
Yes. What I've learned, the greatest thing I learned is like there are seasons of sowing and there are seasons of reaping. The seasons of reaping are way more fun than the seasons of sowing, but the seasons of sowing are way more necessary because without the sowing, there can be no reaping. And when I turned 30, I don't know if anybody could have a better year of life. I mean, I was my book came out on my 30th birthday, the book with Oprah. I was a New York Times bestseller a week after that, number 3 on the list. I won an Emmy Award. Within like a year later, I gave the all-school commencement speech at the University of Texas. All school.
Your alma mater for listeners.
My alma mater. I got asked to give a national TED Talk in Vancouver. I mean, whatever you wanted to do, I did at 30. Man, when I tell you like 31 and 32 hit and it just paled in comparison, I was like, dude, I haven't done anything. And people are like, well, you did this, you did that. But in comparison, I'm like, I haven't done anything. And then this last year, I realized, oh, wait, you were sowing. You were sowing those 2 years so that you could reap this year. And so just reminding people, you might be in a season of sowing. And if you feel like things aren't happening for you in life, that might be the case, right? If you feel like you're not in the relationship you want it to be, maybe you're sowing into yourself. If you feel like your job hasn't taken off how you wanted it to, maybe you're sowing into that company. If you feel like you don't have the friendship group you once had, maybe you're sowing into other people's lives. But without the sowing, there will be no harvest. So make sure you are just as thankful for those seasons of sowing. And that's a lesson I wish I knew then that I know now.
How have you developed such acute self-awareness?
Not being elite at sports. Yeah.
Interesting.
Not being elite. I think, man, when you played volleyball at a high level, when you play in the NFL, you see there are a whole bunch of people better than you. A whole bunch. Like I was good. I'm sure I'm a 1%er of 1%er, whatever the case may be. Me and my brother both played in the NFL. But I just realized like, oh, wait, you're not going to be a Hall of Famer. And that's okay. Like you're not going to be an all-pro player. And that's okay. So not being the best at something allowed me to realize, okay, if I'm not the best at that, what am I the best at? Because I genuinely believe we're all the quote unquote best at something. So the second I realized it's not this, then it must be that. You know what I mean? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So like, if you're the worst at something, you're also the best at something. And if you're the best at something, you're also the worst at something. So my self-awareness just came from realizing, hey, you're not the best at this. And that's so okay, because that means, oh, there must be something else you're really good at.
That's good. I feel like it's difficult for me to, when there's something that I really want, for example, and football was a big part of your life. So that I could imagine figuring out you're not, if you want, I'll use your words, elite at football Hall of Famer level. I feel like that's different than me going bowling with my friends and being like, oh, I'm not good at bowling. Well, that's okay. I don't bowl. Like, I feel like the coming off of a Texas playing career and then going to the NFL and having that experience, like, did it take a while for you to accept? Okay, like, this is a lot more difficult.
Man, that's a really good question. No, it didn't. I'm just a realist. For better or worse, in life, I am a realist. And I was like, oh, you're good. Like, you're good enough to make it to the NFL and play 4 years. And you could have played longer. But man, it's a whole lot of people better than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas moving into the speaking space, I'm like, no, this is what you were called to do. You know, like I tell people, your career is what you're paid for and your calling is what you're made for. I heard that once, changed my life. Your career is what you're paid for. Your calling is what you're made for. Every now and then they intersect. Now that I found my calling, I'm free. I'm so free in life. You don't have to be the best at it. It doesn't matter if you're the worst at it. It's what you're called to do. So it's kind of like you'll be equipped. You'll be given the tools you need to be given because it was what you were called to do. And so you can just live in freedom knowing I'm called to do this. There's so much now in life. I just live so much more free internally. Externally, I still feel a whole lot of weight. I feel the weight of expectations. I feel the weight of people. I feel the weight of success. But like internally, I feel free.
Mm-hmm. This episode's coming out right before Christmas, heading into the new year. What would you say to someone who's feeling super inspired, super amped up? Maybe they took their notes on some of the great analogies you've shared. They want to find their calling, figure it out. How would you recommend they approach the new year and maybe goal setting or just thinking about how they're going to go about it?
It's a really good question.
When he sings.
How would I approach it? So it's interesting. I don't believe in setting goals. My whole TED talk was on not setting goals. I said that goals are dumb. The reason I say that goals...
That's all, folks. Happy New Year.
I don't believe in setting goals. Now, I will explain what I do believe in. I believe that the problem with goals is we don't read the fine print. We do not read the warning label that comes with goal setting. I got my master's degree in sports psychology. I committed my life to what I am about to say. I do not know everything in this life, but what I am about to say, I am experientially sure of. I set a goal in 2012 at the NFL Combine of running a 4.5 40-yard dash. I had probably $5 million on the line in 5 seconds. It was in front of 32 billionaires. It was a job interview. While running the 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine, I hear boom, 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 boom. I kept running. Boom, boom, boom. It was my quad being ripped off the bone. Boom, boom, boom. My quad just tearing off the bone. I run a 4.7 in the 40-yard dash. I don't get drafted where I wanted to get drafted. I wanted to get drafted in the second round. There's 7 rounds for those listening and unfamiliar. I got drafted in the 6th round. Devastated, crushed, dejected, because I set a goal, Vic, and I didn't reach it. It was at that point in time I committed to myself to stop setting goals. I believe instead of setting a goal, because a goal by definition is an end towards which energy is aimed, I believe in setting an objective with no limitations. An objective is simply energy aimed in a direction. So my advice for those going into the new year is put your energy in a direction. Like, don't focus on the ending. Just put your energy in a direction and keep taking steps towards that direction. James Clear talks about it in his book, Atomic Habits, that life is about the habits that you take and the forms that you begin to make. But I don't believe in focusing on an ending. I believe in focusing on the energy moving in a direction. And I'll say to you what I said to the TED audience of, the goal you achieve is the penalty you receive for having set a goal in the first place. Because if I would have achieved my goal of being drafted in the 2nd round and running that time, I may not have won an Emmy. I might still be in the NFL right now. It would have been a penalty. I wouldn't have had a best-selling book. I probably wouldn't know Oprah. That goal I achieved would have actually been a penalty. It would have been the penalty I received for setting a goal. But put your energy in a direction and keep sprinting and moving in that direction. Like, don't focus on an ending. There's a lot more I say. I wrote it in my book, Illogical. So I break down, like, there is benefit to setting goals at some point in time. But I'm big on just move, progress in a direction, and look how far you traveled eventually. Because if you focus on a goal and you don't get it, then what? Self-esteem, ruined. Self-efficacy, ruined. Self-worth, ruined. But again, I firsthand knowledge of setting a goal and failing. So I just submit to people another way.
I love it. I feel like you just gave words to a concept I have lived in alignment with. I tell people too, I don't like to set goals because if my goal is write a book and then I get offered, TV show, I might not take it because I think I'm supposed to do book. But I've always, that's a philosophy I've lived by, and I didn't know how to verbalize it. So thank you. And I agree. Retweet for everybody. Well, Emmanuel, thank you so much. This was such an exciting conversation. I feel like I learned so much. I can't wait to listen to it again. You are incredible in every way. I'm super grateful and thankful for your time. I know you're a really busy, needed person. So thank you for taking the time and for coming over to the studio. So I appreciate it. Can't wait to keep watching what you can, the direction you put your energy. And I hope that our paths cross again.
Of course. And kudos to you, because for those listening, we were supposed to meet maybe 6 or 7 months ago. But just kind of like your consistency, your team's consistency, your delight in wanting to do this and follow through. And hopefully this conversation touches a lot of people.
Yeah, great. I hope you had fun.
I did.